U.S. House Subcommittee's UFO hearing that took place on July 26. The director of AARO has issued a statement in response to that hearing, and this was dropped by Twitter user D. Dean Johnson, and I will read his opening tweet in which he shares Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's statement. AARO director issues statement on U.S. House Subcommittee's UFO hearing. The statement below was issued July 27th, 2023 by Sean Kirkpatrick, Ph.D., Director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO. I received verification directly from Dr. Kirkpatrick that he wrote it. So I'm going to go straight into the statement that he issued, and I'll offer a little bit of commentary as we move through it, and then a little bit of commentary after we finish his statement. Hearings and Transparency, Sean M. Kirkpatrick, Ph.D. Let me begin by saying that the following are my own personal observations and opinions which do not necessarily represent official DoD or IC positions. Yesterday, the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs held an open hearing on UAP, during which a government cover-up of extraterrestrials was alleged. I wholeheartedly applaud congressional efforts to get to the truth about what UAP are and the risks to both pilot safety and national security. I am also absolutely committed to transparency on both the historical mission and the operational mission. As the director of AARO's amazingly talented, devoted, and highly motivated team, however, I cannot let yesterday's hearing pass without sharing how insulting it was to the officers of the Department of Defense and intelligence community who chose to join AARO. Many with not unreasonable anxieties about the career risks this would entail that have been working diligently, tirelessly, and often in the face of harassment and animosity to satisfy their congressionally mandated mission. They are truth seekers, as I am, but you certainly would not get that impression from yesterday's hearing. AARO was established by law to investigate the allegations and assertions presented in yesterday's hearing. Allegations by its witnesses of retaliation to include physical assault and hints of murder are extraordinarily serious, which is why law enforcement is a critical member of the AARO team, specifically to address and take swift action should anyone come forward with such claims. Yet contrary to assertions made in the hearing, the central source of those allegations has refused to speak with AARO. The only commentary I can really provide to that last segment is playing a clip from the interview where David Grusch was interviewed by journalist Ross Coulthart, and it dropped on June 11th, 2023, where David Grusch stated that he's known Sean Kirkpatrick for 8 years, and I'll play it.
Well, I know Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I've known him for about 8 years, and I expressed some concerns to Dr. Kirkpatrick about a year ago and told him what I was starting to uncover, and he didn't follow up with me. And he has my phone number. He could have called me. I hope he ultimately does the right thing. He should be able to make the same investigative discoveries I did. It's totally crazy if he doesn't.
So let's unpack that a little bit. As I stated, this News Nation interview dropped on June 11th, 2023. And in that segment, David Grusch said that he spoke to Sean Kirkpatrick about a year ago. So let's say somewhere within the vicinity of June 2022. Now, it was in July of 2022 that it was announced that the UAPTF would be succeeded as an organization by AARO. And here, Douglas Dean Johnson, in an article that he published on May 12, 2022, titled, "Scientist and Intelligence Officer Sean Kirkpatrick picked to head the new Pentagon IC office empowered by Congress to study unidentified aerial phenomena." And here's a quotation. Washington, May 12, 2022, updated July 20th, 2022. Senior Department of Defense and intelligence community officials apparently have picked a physicist with decades of experience in the intelligence community to serve as director of the recently elevated Pentagon office empowered by Congress to get a grip on unidentified aerial phenomena. And that person that is discussed in that article is, of course, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. So the only reason I'm going through all this is because I guess it could be argued that on a technicality, that when David Grusch got in contact with the now director of Aero, Sean Kirkpatrick, he was not currently the director of Aero, if indeed that dynamic was the case. However, on the other hand, David Grusch emphasizes that Sean Kirkpatrick has his phone number and you get in contact with him at any time and yet never followed up. So from my analysis, ultimately the onus is on Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick to get in touch with David Grusch, since David Grusch already made the effort to communicate with him and no follow-ups were made. So I'm not completely sold on this segment of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's article where he says that this person, and he's referring to David Grusch, didn't get in touch with Aero. Well, you have his phone number. If you find the situation so problematic, why wouldn't you, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, call David Grusch, as you have his phone number according to David Grusch, and figure things out and talk to him and ask him why he is convinced that people have been murdered, injured, and harassed to maintain the secrecy of UFOs. To me, that would have made the most sense prior to issuing a statement such as this.
Have you faced any retaliation or reprisals for any of your testimony or anything on these lines?
Yeah, I have to be careful what I say in detail because there is an open whistleblower reprisal investigation on my behalf, and I don't want to compromise that investigation by providing anything that may help provide somebody information. But it was very brutal and very unfortunate, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally, to be quite frank. Yeah.
It's very unfortunate. As they say, when you're over the target, that's when they do the most firing at you. Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes. Personally.
Have anyone been murdered that you would think, that you know of or have heard of, I guess?
I have to be careful asking that question. I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities.
Maybe in a, if we could get in a confidential area, SCIF, we could talk about that. But unfortunately, we were denied access to the SCIF, and that's very unfortunate in this scenario.
Let's continue his issued statement. Furthermore, some information reportedly provided to Congress has not been provided to Aero, raising additional questions about the true commitment to transparency by some congressional elements. To what I would say to that is, it has been circulating from people that are plugged in that a lot of these whistleblowers do not trust Sean Kirkpatrick, do not feel that he actually wants to get to the bottom of what's really going on, and so they bypass Sean Kirkpatrick and go straight to Congress. Now, obviously, this is only alleged, but I'm just telling you what people that I considered are plugged in have stated to the best of my memory. Let's continue his statement. The subcommittee, whose questions and oversight duties are irreproachable and in genuine need of answers, has never asked Aero for an update on the reporting system, the historical review, the operations, and the S&T strategy that Aero leads and is undertaking. A rational person watching the hearing might reasonably assume that both the witnesses and the members had an understanding of the department's and the IC's progress since the establishment of Aero around this time last year, only naturally leading them to conclude that Aero has been ineffective, not transparent, and delinquent in its legislative mission. Aero briefs the Defense and Intel committees regularly, and since the last NDAA, the Homeland Defense, S&T, and several other committees as well. So in that last segment, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick said, and I'm just pointing out one of the things that he said that I can respond to. he stated the Subcommittee on National Security has never asked AARO for an update on the reporting system. I think he's referring to the public-facing reporting system that whistleblowers can use to give information to AARO. Well, a little over 3 months ago, we had a previous UFO hearing. It was conducted by the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities. And I believe that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand chaired that hearing. Just over 3 months ago, about 10 days over 3 months ago, Kirsten Gillibrand asked Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick where exactly AARO is in their progress regarding the public-facing portal for whistleblowers to get in touch with AARO.
As you know, Dr. Kirkpatrick, Congress has mandated that your office establish a discoverable and accessible electronic method for potential witnesses of UAP incidents and potential participants in government UAP-related activities to contact your office and tell their stories. Congress also set up a process whereby people subject to non-disclosure agreements, preventing them from disclosing what they may have witnessed or participated in, could tell you what they know without risk of retribution from or violation of their NDAs. Have you submitted a public-facing website product for approval to your superiors, and how long has it been under review?
I have. We submitted the first version of that before Christmas.
And do you have an estimate from them when they will respond and when you'll have feedback on that?
No, I don't.
Okay. We will author a letter asking for that timely response to your superiors. When do you expect that you will establish a public-facing, discoverable, and access portal for people to use to contact your office as the law requires?
So I would like to first say thank you all very much for referring the witnesses that you have thus far to us. I appreciate that. We've brought in nearly 24 so far. It's been very helpful. I'd ask that you continue to do that until we have an approved plan. Mm-hmm. We have a multi-phased approach for doing that we've been socializing and have submitted for approval sometime. Mm-hmm. Once that happens, then we should be able to push all that out and get this a little more automated.
Interestingly, one of the witnesses in the July 26 hearing held by the Subcommittee on National Security, Ryan Graves, presented some questions for Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick from his Americans for Safe Aerospace Twitter account. He founded the organization Americans for Safe Aerospace. So I'm assuming he tweeted this out. And this tweet was published after Douglas Johnson tweeted out that statement was indeed by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. So it does appear to me that this is a response in some sense, to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's public statement regarding the July 26 hearing. And I quote, "Questions for Dr. Kirkpatrick at DOD AARO. Does AARO have the Title 50 authority you said it needed in testimony to Congress? Does AARO have access to the scientifically calibrated sensors you said it needed in the NASA IST public meeting? How are witnesses supposed to contact AARO? What is the timeline for a public-facing website?" So nobody knows what the timeline is for the public-facing website. Why didn't Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, in just my humble opinion, include that information in his public statement regarding the hearing? If he felt it necessary to say this, that the Subcommittee on National Security never contacted him about that progress, well, he had an opportunity to put it in that issued statement. That's all I got to say about that. But I do wonder what the progress of the public-facing website is that's mandated by law. Let's continue Dr. Kirkpatrick's public statement. "I am deeply disappointed at the denigration of AARO's dedicated men and women hailing from the Department of Defense, intelligence community, and civil partners who are pouring their hearts out working this issue on the behalf of Congress. AARO has the authorities and resources necessary to execute this mission to meet congressional intent. And as we've stated before, AARO welcomes anyone with knowledge of any of these allegations or programs to talk to us in a safe, secure, and appropriately cleared environment. Rest assured, AARO will follow the data wherever it leads. Finally, to be clear, AARO has yet to find any credible evidence to support the allegations of any reverse engineering program for non-human technology. Also, to be clear, none of the whistleblowers from yesterday's hearing ever worked for AARO or was ever a representative to AARO, contrary to statements made in testimony and in the media. So what stands out to me from that last segment that I shared, and I quote, "Also, to be clear, none of the whistleblowers from yesterday's hearing ever worked for AARO or was ever a representative to AARO, contrary to statements made in testimony and in the media." So the following clip is whistleblower David Grusch's opening statement. And I'm not about to pour over the entire hearing right now because I want to get this video out. But this segment is the closest I can come to off the top of my head of where he might have said something that could be interpreted as having worked for AARO or been a representative of AARO.
Mr. Grusch.
Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important issue and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grusch. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force, both active duty Air National Guard and Reserve at the rank of major, and most recently from 2021 to 2023, at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF, and eventually, once it was established, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO.
So as I referenced earlier, because I went over the entire statement by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, I'll revisit one of his sentences, and I quote, "Yet contrary to assertions made in the hearing, the central source," and I believe that's referencing David Grusch, I think it's pretty obvious, "of those allegations has refused to speak with AARO." Well, I don't know. David Grusch just said in his opening statement following being sworn in under oath that he actually did communicate with AARO. So a lot of questions and not very many answers. This public statement that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick has issued as a result of his dissatisfaction with the hearing is quite remarkable. And I don't want to add too many more opinions. Let's just see how this plays out. This is not what I was expecting. And I want to underscore that as far as I understand, this statement was not going through official channels. He just put this out there because he was just apparently pretty upset about what was stated during the hearing. This saga continues. I intend to cover multiple analyses of the hearing.